After being transported to the Rock of Eternity by an elderly wizard named Shazam, little Billy Batson was given the power of 6 mighty gods. By saying the magic word, Shazam, with meaning mind you, everyone seems to forget that, he is transformed into an adult superhero, with the wisdom of Solomon, the strength of Hercules, the stamina of Atlas, the power of Zeus, the courage of Achilles, and the speed of Mercury. He also has the ability to share his magic with those he considers his family, turning them into superheroes much like himself. Today, I'm going to be looking at the Rogues Gallery of Shazam, the original Captain Marvel, and rank my 10 favorites from it. If there are any characters I miss that you feel should have been included, just leave them in the comments section below. Leave your entire list down there if you want. I enjoy seeing them. To kick off my list at number 10, I'm going with a very obscure yet amusing group of characters, the Crocodile Men. Their names are Herkimer, Marmaduke, and Sylvester, and they are extraterrestrials from the planet Punkus that resemble anthropomorphic crocodiles. They are mostly played for laughs and have only cameoed a couple times throughout the decades. They are usually made the lowliest members of Mr. Mind's villainous team, the Monster Society of Evil. They're really goofy, but I love them. Next up at number 9 is the dark opposite of Shazam, the champion of hell named Sabbac, an acronym for the 6 demons who give him power: Satan, Aim, Belial, Beelzebub, Asmodeus, and Cratius. The original version of the character, introduced in the 1940s, was a man named Timothy Carnes, who would be transformed into the evil champion after saying the word Sabbac, where a black lightning bolt would come out of the ground making a hissing sound, and he would grow fangs, muscle mass, and could shoot fire out of his hands and mouth. He was mainly a foe of Freddie Freeman, Captain Marvel Jr., but in later years would battle with the primary Shazam, as well as Superman. The second Sabbac was a Russian immigrant turned New York crime boss named Ishmael Gregor, the one I think most people are familiar with. Ishmael was obsessed with gaining the powers of Sabbac, and would perform a demonic ritual that involved the sacrifice of an entire bus full of innocent people. He would also have Timothy Carnes' voice box removed so he could not transform, and claim the powers of Sabbac for himself after stabbing Carnes and his own body shish kebab style with a special ritual sword. Now, Sabbac is a cool character, sure, a scary and imposing threat for the hero, but he's not higher on my list because demon and devil characters like him aren't really my cup of tea. I find so many of them to be similar in their approach, kind of boring. The only one I really like is Mephisto from Marvel, and even that is a stretch sometimes, depending on the story. At number 8, I've chosen the duo of Lady Blaze and Lord Satanus. They are twins, the half-demon children of the wizard Shazam and an unknown demoness. I'd say the old coot got around and was into some kinky shit, but the demoness had disguised herself as a beautiful human woman. How clever. Regardless, having these half-demon offspring upset the other gods, and Shazam essentially disowned them as a result. Blaze and Satanus hate their father and interfere with his existence as much as possible. They enjoy stirring the pot, attacking his allies, manipulating people, attempting to steal souls frequently, and have led rebellions against the realms of Earth and Hell to try and take them over. Typical demon stuff. Blaze is definitely the more dangerous and wicked of the two, though, having been the reason for Black Adam's fall from grace thousands of years ago in some continuities. She is so evil and controlling that even her brother has fought against her at times, using other heroes like Superman as puppets in their twisted schemes. Blaze and Satanus have battled a wide range of DC heroes over the years, from Shazam to Superman, Batman, even Etrigan the Demon. Moving on to number 7 with the giant atomic-powered robot named Mr. Atom. It was created by a scientist named Dr. Charles Langley, who had intended on giving it a fully functioning and presumably peaceful brain, but the energy from his experiment caused a massive explosion, killing Langley and destroying his lab. The robot became convinced that it should rule the world and went on a rampage. It would interrupt a meeting at the United Nations and threaten the Earth with its power. Decades later, Mr. Adam's origin was altered a bit, following the events of the 1985 crossover Crisis on Infinite Earths. It was still the creation of Dr. Langley, armed to the teeth with various weaponry, but its purpose was to find a suitable woman to take care of its creator in his final moments. Mr. Adam managed to capture Lady Shazam in a small energy cage built into its back, but by the time they arrived at Langley's laboratory, it was revealed that the scientist had died some time ago. How long is anyone's guess, though Mary believes it was a month. Grody. Giant robots are always cool, and so is Mr. Adam. It's been a villain of Shazam, Captain Marvel, since the late 1940s, whether it's in control of its own body or not. Next, at number 6, we've got Baron Albrecht Krieger, also known as Captain Nazi. He's a blonde-haired, blue-eyed German super soldier, experimented on during World War II by his scientist father to become the perfect weapon for his Führer, Adolf Hitler. Captain Nazi possesses superhuman strength, stamina, and speed, and can hold his own against Shazam. His body can withstand high temperatures and projectiles hitting his skin. He also has the ability to fly after having inhaled a special gas. Albrecht debuted in the early 1940s, when North American comic books acted as little more than wartime propaganda. He was made to be another Axis powers enemy for the original Captain Marvel to take on and pummel into oblivion. In recent decades and continuities, though, it has been established that Captain Nazi had been placed into suspended animation by Nazi scientists and would be brought back to life in the modern era by his brother Wolf to revive the Third Reich, stronger than ever. Not only has Captain Nazi battled Shazam numerous times, but he was made the one responsible for the murder of Freddie Freeman's grandfather, with Freddie going to great lengths to get his revenge. In a 2010 Justice Society of America story called Fatherland, Captain Nazi also formed a dastardly team of neo-Nazis called the Fourth Reich, whose goal was to conquer the world and exterminate the descendants of all patriotic superheroes. Using a weapon called the Darkness Engine, they negated the powers of all metahumans, and over the span of 20 years took over country after country, setting up prisoner of war camps and performing public executions, making former superheroes like Superman watch the proceedings. Maybe I'll look at the story arc in the future. It's like something out of Wolfenstein. The visuals are intense. Moving on to number 5 with Jonathan Crane, aka the Scarecrow. He's typically a villain of Batman, my personal favorite of his to be exact, but he did have a memorable encounter with Shazam as well, in Volume 3 of his series, when the hero found himself in Gotham City. At first, Billy makes fun of Crane's appearance, that of a literal scarecrow, but gets blasted in the face with a new airborne version of the villain's fear gas. Shazam may be mighty with the powers of gods, but he is also still mortal, and the fear gas latches on to this humanity. Billy sees his deepest and darkest fears, afraid of not being worthy of the power he wields, afraid to fail, afraid to cause the deaths of all those he loves, basically everything that could possibly overwhelm a young boy in his situation. Something I find really neat about this encounter is that Scarecrow is able to pick Shazam apart with such ease. He becomes curious after hearing the screams coming out of him. With his experience, he knows they are not those of a god, but of a mere human. He says Shazam is a frightened child beneath his powerful exterior, almost as if he knows. Thankfully, Batman arrives and helps Billy focus, shows him to use the fear as a weapon, to embrace it, become stronger than it, like he had chosen to do all those years ago. The two then proceed to beat the tar out of Scarecrow. Next up are the 7 deadly enemies of man, or 7 deadly sins, which are taking up my number 4 spot. Strongly interwoven within the origin of Shazam, these are the 7 colorful and grotesque statues Billy Batson walks past on his way to the wizard, who bestows upon him great power. Each of the idols is a prison that contains one of 7 demons based on the 7 sins from Christianity: pride, envy, greed, wrath, sloth, gluttony, and lust. The demons have a very powerful influence over the minds and hearts of both humans and metahumans, and when released can cause havoc throughout the world. In the older comics, they were given fairly generic designs, but in newer stories, each one is given a more distinct look, color, and personality that matches the sin they are named after and represent. At number 3 is the mad scientist Dr. Thaddeus Savannah. In the older comics, he was a wealthy tycoon, hell-bent on world domination, and crossed paths with Shazam, who would constantly stand in his way. But in recent years and continuities, he became obsessed with magic, after having been chosen and then rejected by the wizard Shazam. He would pursue the location of Black Adam's tomb, and during his search was blinded in one eye by a protection spell that gave him the ability to see magic with it. He usually allies with other Captain Marvel villains, such as Black Adam and Mr. Mind, acting as another one of their minions or pawns within larger stories, which is why he isn't higher on my list. Moving on to number 2 with Black Adam. You knew he'd be on here somewhere. He's the ancient Egyptian predecessor of Shazam, who became corrupted by the power bestowed upon him by the wizard. He's the mirror opposite of Shazam, Billy Batson, the example of what not to do with your power. The origin of Black Adam, introduced in the New 52, depicted him as a slave in the fictional country of Kahndaq, teleported to the Rock of Eternity and granted powers from the gods. However, it was later revealed that the young boy was not Adam, but his nephew, Amon, who had used his powers to cure his uncle and save his life following an injury he had sustained protecting him. Amon wanted to use his power to free his people and eliminate the evil within the souls of those who had enslaved them, offering them another chance. But Adam strictly wanted revenge. When his nephew went to transform, his uncle got in the way of the lightning bolt and would steal the power for himself. Shazam's origin story in the New 52 ended with a battle against Black Adam. The villain had threatened to kill Billy's foster siblings if he did not give up his power. Instead of giving it to Adam, Billy shares it with his family instead, turning them all into adult superheroes as well. If you'd like more info on Black Adam's origins pre-New 52, I'm pretty sure I went through it all in the breakdown video I did on him several years ago. I'm almost certain, but I've made so many videos at this point that what I covered in some of them, what I may have said, it's all a blur. Anyways, to top my list at number 1, the greatest villain of Shazam, who is also my personal favorite, the humorously terrifying Mr. Mind. He's a worm from Venus who physically resembles a caterpillar here on Earth, with the power to control minds telepathically after climbing into a target's ear canal. He communicates and delivers his commands using a special voice box that hangs around his neck. What I love so much about Mr. Mind is how unassuming he is. Looking at him, you'd think he was just a pushover, a silly little worm, but over the years, he has been involved in some pretty dark and sinister schemes. If you'd like to hear more detail on some of them, I suggest watching my separate breakdown video I did on Mr. Mind several years back, or the recent comic review I did on Shazam and the 7 Magic Lands, which features Mr. Mind as its primary antagonist. Here's hoping we get to see him adapted in live-action film at some point. He's one of the most underrated villains in the genre, in my opinion, that would easily stand apart from all of the other supervillains we've seen on the big screen. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to watch this top 10 villain list. I hope you enjoyed it. If there are any villains of Shazam, Captain Marvel, I may have missed that you would have included as one of his greatest, be sure to leave them down in the comments section below. If you'd like to support the channel and ensure the creation of more content like this and having it come out more frequently, you can do so by subscribing, hitting that bell icon for notifications, and by becoming a producer over on patreon.com/channelnerdgasm if you can. I will see you all in the next one. Take care, stay safe, and always stay nerdy.